Federal aviation authorities were alerted in early 2001 that an Arizona flight school believed Hani Hanjour lacked the English and flying skills necessary for a commercial pilot's license he already had. Federal Aviation Administration inspector even sat next to Hanjour in 2001 in one of the Arizona classes and then checked records to ensure Hanjour's 1999 pilot's license was legitimate, but ultimately concluded no further action was warranted. Hanjour obtained his private pilot's license after about 3 months of training in Arizona. Several more months of training yielded a commercial pilot certificate issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. In early 2001, he started training on a Boeing 737 simulator. An instructor found his work substandard and advised him to quit, but he continued and finished his training just 5.5 months before the attack, the commission said. He also passed that specific class. Hanjour is suspected to have piloted American Airlines Flight 77 that crashed into the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. The Arizona flight school manager told authorities the FAA inspector called her when Hanjour's name became public after the hijackings and declared, "Your worst nightmare has just been realized." The operations manager for the defunct Jet Tech Flight School in Phoenix said she called the FAA inspector that oversaw her school 3 times in January and February of 2001 to express her concerns about Hanjour. Peggy Shebret, the Jet Tech manager, said, quote, "I couldn't believe he had a commercial license of any kind with the skills he had," end quote. She also had been interviewed by the FBI. Marilyn Latner, the vice president for the Pan Am International Flight Academy that owned Jet Tech before it closed in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, said the flight school expressed its concerns and believed the FAA official observed Hanjour's weakness firsthand. Latner said, quote, "We did have skill level concerns and a bit of a language fluency concern, and we did mention it to our FAA training center official," end quote. However, the FAA official said he did observe Hanjour's limited knowledge of flying. However, nothing caused him any concern. He also checked his flight credentials, and he did tell Jet Tech they were valid. So he did follow up on all concerns, said Marilyn Ladner. She also said Hanjour did not finish his studies at Jet Tech and left the schools for another flight training school. FAA officials confirmed their inspector, John Anthony, was contacted by Pan Am in January and February 2001 about Hanjour, and at the request of the school, checked Hanjour's commercial pilot's license to ensure it was valid. But they said he observed nothing that warranted further action or suggested Hanjour would eventually hijack a plane. The inspector considered Hanjour just one of many students that schools routinely seek FAA reviews on, the official said. Laura Brown, FAA spokesman, will go on record saying, quote, "There was nothing about the pilot's actions to signal criminal intent at the time or that would have caused us to alert law enforcement," end quote. The FBI in Arizona raised concerns in July of 2001 that a large number of Arab students were training at a U.S. flight school and urged FBI headquarters to check all schools nationwide for such students, advice that wasn't followed until after the events of September 11, 2001. That FBI agent was Ken Williams. The FAA's Brown said Anthony was taking some of his own training at Jet Tech in January 2001 and coincidentally sat in the same classroom with Hani Hanjour for one course. But she said Anthony didn't note any major language problems. Shebret, the flight school manager, said she told Anthony she believed Hanjour could not write or speak English fluently as required to get a U.S. commercial pilot's license. Shepard would later say, quote, "The thing that really concerned me was that John had a conversation in the hallway with Hanjour and realized his skills at this point were his ability to speak proper English, which he lacked," end quote. The FBI has reconstructed Hanjour's path through the United States in painstakingly detail. Agents have questioned and administered a lie detector test to one of Hanjour's instructors in Arizona, who was an Arab American and had signed off on Hanjour's flight instruction credentials before he got his pilot's license. That instructor, who also was a pilot for a U.S. airline, told the Associated Press that he told authorities that Hanjour was a very average pilot, maybe struggling a little bit. Maybe his English wasn't good. The instructor said he had passed an FBI polygraph exam It was not under any further investigation.